How you doing, everybody? I'm Danilo Evangelista, and welcome to our off-season The Hurricane Hub discussion for Saturday, February 18th, 2023. Not a lot going on today in the world of tropics, but it's a special day for me today since it's February 18th. It's my birthday, so happy birthday to me, but other than that, nothing else interesting going on in the world. So, I guess with that, let's get started. Taking a look at the satellite across the Atlantic, and you could also see the United States too. Nothing much going on right now, of course. Strong westerly winds indicative of strong upper level shear that we usually see this time of year in the Atlantic, which is why we don't have development this time of year. Look at that upper level low that you see. Typical of the winter, and that's why we don't have any development this time of year. And that's why hurricane season is from June 1st to November 30th, because that's when we don't have these westerly winds, and that's when things are usually a lot more favorable in the Atlantic. But with that, let's take a look at the SSTAs for this week, updated as of yesterday. These maps update every single day, but are usually a day or so behind. But that's all right, because nothing really that much changes in a day, at least when it comes to this. But taking a look at what the general picture is, noticing some things. The La Nina is still barely holding on, kind of seeing it really dying off now. Not really much of those deep, cold, deep blue anomalies that you would usually see when it's indicative that the SST anomalies, the water temperatures in the Pacific, are really cold. And what we're also starting to see in response to that is a bunch of this red beginning to show up, and that is indicative of warm anomalies beginning to show up, which is, of course, showing that we're going towards change, whether it's towards just the ENSO or El Nino, like a lot of people are saying and models are showing. Whatever it is, we are starting to see change, and it's starting to pop up at least in the eastern portions. However, still not made its way yet in the surface part closer towards the Central Pacific. That's where we really track the ENSO. It's not made its way yet, but and I thought this would be something really cool to show. I actually did want to show this last week, or not that I wanted to show it, but I think I was reminded of it last week. This is a look at the sea surface temperature anomalies below the surface. So what I'm talking about basically is take this part of the Pacific right along the equator, and instead of showing it how it looks on the surface, this is basically the depth of what it looks like below the surface. And you can clearly see as we go towards February and into the later months, you could start to see these warm anomalies really begin to pop up right near the upper right side of the chart, which is indicative that we do have these warmer anomalies beginning to show up there. And if we take a look at the bigger picture, which is what everybody's talking about, is this huge, expansive area of very warm anomalies developing under the Pacific, under this colder pool that is still associated with what's keeping the La Nina going, even though it's barely there anymore. This is that warmer pool, which a lot of people are talking about could transfer to the surface, and in return could possibly bring El Nino with it later this year. Depends on whether or not that does happen, but if it does, this is what will cause it, and it'll be interesting to see how this all connects and that moves to the surface, and we see that warm up the Pacific. But as for right now, we're still in La Nina territory, the latest value at 0.7 degrees Celsius below normal. And as I said before, it's still kind of steady if we really look at November, because this goes back all the way to November. You see, since then, we've not really seen that much of a change. If you look at the long range, and you know how they do that map that you put a line through a graph that goes up and down and kind of try to take the average, you could see that maybe there's been a slight trend towards a warmer kind of average if we average it out over a course of several months. But if we really take a look at it, it's not really trended that much one way or the other. We had these weekly fluctuations that fluctuated with the SSTs every few weeks or so, but in terms of anything big that we're showing huge signs that we're going to jump all the way up to neutral or El Nino, that's not happening yet. And another way that I like to look at it is if we take a look at the SOI, that too is in the positive territory. If you've been following me for the past few weeks, that too is in the positive territory. And you know, when it's in the positive territory, the atmosphere is still coupled with La Nina, because we still have pressure patterns that are favorable for La Nina. And that is indicative. If we take a look at the CDAS Nino 3.4, you still see it's in La Nina, and we're still solidly kind of holding on to La Nina. Yeah, we're surely slowly beginning to move away. We're starting to see those changes, especially if we look at the anomalies here, but still, we still have some sort of breeding ground for La Nina to kind of stay, or some sort of ground, I should say, holding ground, not breeding ground, holding ground, I should say, for La Nina to kind of stick around. And until that kind of goes away, El Nino will still not come, because El Nino, when it comes to these type of ENSO events, we not only need the surface, the SSTs to pop up, but we also need the atmosphere to couple it too, because in a way, the atmosphere does kind of help with kick-starting these events to occur and kind of keeping them going. And if they don't keep them going, then they're not going to happen. So until the atmosphere kind of moves away from a La Nina state, we're going to continue to be in one, even if it's in a slight state, but still, until that moves away, we're not really going to see any change anytime soon. But as you saw, models are kind of hinting at that, so we'll see if it does actually occur. Taking a look now closer towards home at the actual sea surface temperatures, and if we go back to this, we could see the nutshell of what's basically going on. The Atlantic, besides the Eastern Pacific, kind of warming up. The Atlantic has been staying warm. Taking a look at the Gulf of Mexico, we still have very warm sea surface temperature anomalies off the coast of Florida and off the East Coast along the Gulf Stream. Still very warm. The Atlantic, the Eastern Atlantic, kind of near normal. Some spots where we have noticeably more than normal temperatures, and then off the coast of Africa, slightly above normal too. Maybe a small chunk of below normal as we get right off the coast of Africa, but still doesn't really matter much this time of year. It's only February. But this part, especially off the coast of Africa and in the Atlantic, really begins to matter once we get towards April and May. So for now, we shouldn't really worry about that for now. But of course, watch that as we go towards the off season and into the hurricane season. But for now, taking a look at what's closer to us, I did mention this before, and I will mention this again. This Gulf of Mexico is really interesting because when it comes to severe weather season, when we have the high pressure set up over the southeast, that kind of sets up a pattern where it takes moisture from the Gulf of Mexico and kind of feeds that into the southeast, which helps trigger big severe weather events in the spring. And with the fact that we have a very warm Gulf of Mexico, that means the overall juice and energy in the atmosphere is there. So if this persists into the spring, and we're only days away now, basically, from meteorological spring. If this persists into then, if this persists throughout the spring and into the heart of severe weather season, which I see that's probably will, this will be interesting, especially when it comes to fueling severe weather. And if we take a look at the actual SST anomalies in the Gulf of Mexico, look at this. We still have 25s, still 24s in the Gulf. We've got rid of those 26s because it's February. A lot more mixing and cooling as the sun angle kind of shifts away. You know how that stuff with winter works, but still, we still have 25s, 24s, and even up into the lower 20s, even right near the shelf waters of the Gulf Coast, and that is way, way above normal. And heck, if you look off the southeast coast too, off the coast of Florida, not far off from the Florida Keys, we still have 26 degrees Celsius, and even poking up a little bit from the Caribbean, the 26 degrees Celsius mark is still somewhat protruding into the Gulf of Mexico. Definitely has gone down a little bit because of mixing and cooling of the waters that we usually see during the winter time. And then in the actual Caribbean itself, we're in the 26 and the 27 degrees Celsius mark. That the Caribbean will always be 26, 27 degrees Celsius at all times of the year. The Caribbean is always warm. It's much closer to the equator, so makes sense. But talking about other areas too, the Bahamas still 24, 25, even some of the southeast Bahamas still seeing up to 26 degrees Celsius. And hey, even north of the islands too, we see some readings 26. So very warm indeed, and if this does persist through the winter and spring and into hurricane season, and we still have these real warm anomalies that we especially see when we look at this map, hey, things will be interesting, and that might be a sign that the atmosphere, if we do have storms this year, maybe to watch out a little more for potential primed atmosphere for maybe it's for something to get going. We'll have to see, though. It's only February and things could definitely change. Moving over to weather in the United States, kind of quiet. We do, I think, have some sort of system moving through. That's right now over the central U.S. If we look back at the satellite here, yeah, there's something moving through. I don't know what that is, but I think it's something. But one thing's for sure, it's not making any severe weather, because looking at the SPC, we don't have severe weather expected for today. Neither do we have it for tomorrow. And if we take a look at the the day 3 forecast, no severe weather expected then either. Maybe a slight chance for some thunderstorms, but nothing in terms of the way of severe weather for day 3. Day 4, nothing expected, predictability too low. And then there's something on day 5. If we look at that real quick, 15% chance for something. If we were to put it into perspective, I think when it comes to marginal and slight risk, I think 15% is something along the risk for slight risk. So might have something that might try to occur then. Then day 6, 7, and 8, there's nothing else going on. So overall quiet. I guess enjoy the quiet while it's here, because it's February and March is around the corner, and we know when it comes to March and April, severe weather kicks up, and that's when we have those outbreaks that occur every few weeks or so. And as I said, if the way the Gulf of Mexico looks now, might want as something to watch to see if that has any sort of impact on severe weather season. It'll be interesting for sure, but all really depends, and it really depends on what exactly happens to really see if that'll have an impact, but interesting nonetheless to keep an eye on. But we do have quite a bit of time till hurricane season, still more than 100 days away. But, and I was just reminded to say this now, we are approaching up on the 100-day mark away till hurricane season, and usually once we get below the 100-day mark, that's when things start getting a little more interesting. We're in February, getting under the 100-day mark, we're getting almost into March, and then as we get into March and April, that's when things start to get a little more clear when it comes to hurricane predicting. So time is flying by, that is for sure, and we are not far from hurricane season. We're almost getting there, if that's what I should say. We zoomed in on it a little bit, but for now, things quiet and should stay that way, and hopefully should stay that way. And yeah, nothing else to really update. So enjoy your Saturday, enjoy your Sunday, enjoy the week upcoming. And as I did mention, that I think it's 100 days away, coming up towards hurricane season. So I might do a video when that happens. I think that's on Tuesday when we'll reach the 100-day mark. Might do a special discussion. Depends, but we'll see. We'll see when we get there. But if you want to stay tuned for that, make sure to like, subscribe. As always, I always say, share with family and friends, and especially if you want to get the videos as soon as I upload them. Click the notification bell, and you'll get the video right the second that I upload it. So if you want that, please do all of that, and please enjoy your day. Please enjoy your week, and we'll see you back here next Saturday.